Hi everyone. So today we're going to look at the gradient and the y-intercept of the line. So I'm on GeoGebra. Well, I've taken a screenshot of it and I've drawn these three different lines. So I've got my green line, which is y equals x plus 3. So that's that one. I've got y equals 2x minus 1, which is my blue line. And then my red line is y equals 5x. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is the gradient and the y-intercept. So these are two parts of the equation. Okay, the first one I'm going to mention is the y-intercept. Now that is what it's called basically. So the y-intercept means where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, and I'll put this in the slideshow so you can see it in words as well. So if we look at the green line first, where does it cross the y-axis? Well, remember, this is the y-axis. So it crosses it right here. So that's when y is 3, okay? And if you notice, it's this plus 3 on the end here, okay? So let's have a look at the blue line now. So we've got y equals 2x minus 4. So this blue line, where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it crosses the y-axis here. Don't be fooled into thinking it's here. Remember, that's the x-axis, okay? So it crosses here at minus 4, okay? So that would be that part there, okay? And this last one, y equals 5x. So this is the red line. Where does it pass through the y-axis? Well, it passes here, which is at 0, which is why there's nothing on the end of it, because actually it's the same as saying plus 0. So the y-intercept is that number that's added on or taken off the end, okay? Now, I'm just going to choose a different colour. Let's go with that green there. Okay, so now let's have a look at the gradient, okay? Now, all you need to know is the gradient is the steepness of the line. So if we look at the green and the red line, the green line is very steady, but the red line is much steeper, and that's because the gradient is higher. So if we look at the green line, and I'll tell you what the gradient is on this. This is 1, but we can't see it. There's an invisible number 1 in front of that x. If you remember back to our algebra days, when x is on its own, it's got a 1 in front of it, which is invisible. Okay. Now we've said the gradient of the red line is much higher. Well, yes it is, because it's 5. Okay, so look at the difference. And the blue line, so if we're looking at it, it's because the gradient is 2. Okay, it's not as steep as the red one, but it's slightly steeper than the green one. Okay, so the gradient is the number that always appears in front of the x. Okay, we can go a little bit further with a gradient, but we're not going to do that today. So all I want you to know is that the y-intercept is the number that's added on or taken off the end, and the gradient is what's in front of the x. And the higher the gradient, the steeper the line. Okay, so you can use GeoGebra to help you if you want to look at a couple of things on it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what you're going to be looking at in today's work. So you're going to be told some lines, some equations. So they're written in the form y equals 2x plus 7. And you're going to be asked to write down the gradient or the y-intercept. So there are 2 questions today, okay, with lots of parts. So the first part is to write the gradient. And remember, I told you the gradient is the number that appears in front of the x. No matter what it looks like, it could be a fraction, it could be a negative, it's just whatever number appears here. So for this one, the gradient would be 2, okay? If it was this line, the gradient would be negative 3, because that's what's in front of the x. And if it was this one, 4/5 x plus 2, the gradient would be 4/5. Okay, so that's all you need to do on the first part. The second part is writing the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, remember what I said on the video earlier on, is that the y-intercept is the part that's added on or taken off the end. So for the first one, it's just going to be 7. It's positive 7, so you could write plus 7, but we don't normally put a plus in front of a positive, do we? Okay, the next one, so the y-intercept, this time it's negative 4. So do you remember that second line that we looked at? It went through negative 4, so it's important to put that it passed through negative 4. Otherwise, people might think it's gone through normal 4. And the third one, so the y-intercept would simply just be 2. Okay? The last part I'm going to show you is going to link to Wednesday's lesson, okay? So you're going to be writing the equations yourself. So this time I'm going to give you the gradient and the y-intercept, and then you've got to turn it into this form. Now, they're always written in the same way. Y equals something x plus or minus something. So we actually call it y equals mx plus c, okay? So c, this plus c part, is the y-intercept. Okay, so it's that number. The m is the gradient. Okay, and that's the number. So this is the way that it's always been remembered. So if I told you the gradient of a line was 4 and the y-intercept was negative 3, and I was asked to write the equation of the line, I would write y equals, well, the gradient I'm going to do in green, which is m, so I'd write 4x, and then the next part is the y-intercept, which is this bit here, okay, would be minus 3. So my line is y equals 4x minus 3. I'll do one more with you. So this time the gradient is going to be negative 2 and the y-intercept is going to be plus 5. Okay, so I've got y equals something x. Okay, so my gradient is going to be green, so I've got negative 2. Okay, and then I put my y-intercept on the end, which is plus 5. So just put it all in one colour. Y equals negative 2x plus 5. Now I want you to have a go at the questions.